Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is SUKKAH Lamed Hey. We begin right on top of the Amid. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Brisa. How do we know that we're meant to take an esrog? There's no word esrog in the Torah. The pasuk merely says Pri Eitz Hadar, and we learn from there that's going to be a fruit from a tree which has some unique characteristic. Eitz shetam eitzoy upiryoy shav. It's a type of tree whose fruit and wood and branch itself have similar tastes. So the wood of the tree itself tastes somewhat like the fruit which grows on it. And what is that? Have omer ze esrog. Apparently that's the esrog, which has that feature. Now we all know Rashi and Chumash says that initially, when Hashem created the world, it was meant to be a fruit tree whose fruit and eitz have similar tastes, but the trees deviated and the wood no longer tastes like the fruit, except for some exceptions, such as the esrog, which maintained its loyalty to Hashem, and indeed it still has this feature where the eitz and the pri are similar, and indeed that's being used for the mitzvah. Says the Gemara, Ve'ema pilplan. We have another candidate. Pilplan, these seeds, these spice seeds, which have the same feature. The eitz and the seed have similar tastes. Kedesanya, as we find in a brisa. Hoya Rabbi Meir Omer. Rabbi Meir used to say, I have a kasha. Mimashma shenemar. If you take a look at the pasuk, which says, Unatatem kol eitz. The pasuk speaking about Erla. You're going to plant a tree, and the first 3 years you cannot eat the fruit from that tree. Well, once we say you cannot eat the fruit of that tree, wouldn't you figure out that it's an eitz ma'achal, it's a fruit tree? Why then does the pasuk have to spell it out? When you're going to plant kol eitz ma'achal, it's obvious that it's a fruit tree. The pasuk is trying to add something, going to include another type of so-called fruit, which perhaps we would think isn't really a fruit. What is this? Eitz ma'achal is a ribui to include eitz, a type of tree, shetam eitzu upir yoshava, where the eitz tastes similar to the pri. Havi omer ze pilplan. So what is that? It's referring to pilplan, this seed used for seasoning, which has this feature. And what does the pasuk come to add? Two things. Number one, pilplan chayavan ba'arla. Don't think that pilplan, which grow on these short, low trees, brushes, are not really considered growing on a tree. They're considered like a yerek, in which case there's no din of arla. No, even this pilplan tree is considered a tree and is chayiv ba'arla. That's number one. And number two, Ve'ein Eretz Yisrael chaser klum. There's nothing missing in Eretz Yisrael. Even pilplan are to be found there. Today they found the natural gas. Eventually they'll find everything in Eretz Yisrael. Shanam aloi techsar kolba. There's nothing missing there. It has everything. Pretty clear that pilplan have this feature as well. Why isn't that going to be taken instead of the esrog? Says the Gemara, well, that's impossible. It's not going to work out. Pilplan are not suitable candidates for the mitzvah on Sukkot. Heichni avid, what should we do? Should we take hold of just one seed? That lekicha doesn't have prominence. It's not chashav. It's not visible. Little seed. And the Chassam Sefer explains. The pasuk says ulakachtem. You meant to take a lekicha tama, a full-fledged, noticeable taking. A little seed doesn't conform. That's out. Ninkait treyat lasa. What about taking 2 or 3 seeds? Now it's noticeable. Well, that also doesn't work. Pri echad amar achmana v'lo shnayim u'shloisha peiros. What does the pasuk say? Pri eitz hadar lashon yachid. Just one, not 2 or 3. Hilkach le'yefshar. So apparently that's off the table, and only candidate that we have left to consider is the esrog, which has the concept of eitz shetam eitzu upir yoshava. So that's the first pshat in the brisa. Pri eitz hadar is an esrog, because the pri and the eitz are similar in nature. Rabbi Eimer, I'll give you another source. Al Trikri Hadar, instead of reading Priyetz Hadar, darshan like this. Elo Hadir, like a pen where you keep the animals. So the Priyetz Hadar is related to a pen. What does that mean? Madir Zeh, just as this pen, which contains the animals, has animals of all sizes, shapes, varieties. Yesh ba'igdoil, muktanim, large ones, small ones, tmimim, ubali mumin, whole or blemished. Hachinami, here as well. What type of fruit tree are you meant to use for the mitzvah? Hachinami yesh ba'igdoil, muktanim. That's the esrog tree, which has large esrogim, small esrogim. You see, the esrog lingers on, stays on the tree for a couple of years, so you have huge esrogim and small newcomers. So it's g'dolim, uktanim, tmimim, balimumim. So apparently it's the esrog. And the Gemara will ask on this, what do you mean? Different sizes, different types? Atu shar peris leisbehu g'dolim uktanim? What about other fruit trees? Apples. You don't have large ones and small ones on the same tree. Tmimim or balimumim? So why dafka an esrog? Says the Gemara, no, this is not what I meant. Elohi ka'amar, he meant like this. An esrog is unique in a sense that you still have last year's crop present on the tree when the new arrivals show up. When the new ones come, the old ones, the big ones are still here. And that's unique to esrog. You don't have that by other trees. So although within the same crop you can have slightly larger, slightly smaller, blemished, unblemished, but not to this extent, where you're going to have this huge fruit left over from last year alongside a small newcomer. So instead of Priyetz Hadar, the drush is Hadir, like a animal pen, which contains all different varieties and sizes. And that's the esrog, where the fruit just lingers on the tree until it grows and grows. And it ends up being alongside a small newcomer. So you have the G'dolim and the K'tanim. Rabbi Vo Amar, he says a little differently. It's going to be the same point, the same conclusion, but he arrives at that conclusion a bit differently than Rebbe. Al tikri hadar ella hadar. Instead of hadar, it's going to be hadar. Davar shadar ilanoi mishana lashana. Hadar lingers, lives on. So the esrog just stays on the tree until it's picked. It stays on from year to year. And that's how we know the pasuk of Priyetz Hadar is referring to an esrog. So Rashi says it's really the same concept as Rebbe, but just another way of expressing this point. Ben Azai Omer, he has a different drush. Al tikri Hadar ela idur. Instead of reading Priyetz Hadar, the drush is idur shekein beloshin Yavani in Greek. Kairin lamayim idur. Water is called idur. Ve'ezehi shegadol al kol mayim. What type of fruit tree needs to be watered? So in addition to rainwater, natural water supply, it needs to have al kol mayim. It has to have manual watering as well. What type of tree is that? Priyetz Hadar idur, which needs lots of water. Habiyom is esrog. Apparently that's the esrog, which is a very sensitive tree, needs to be tended to properly and constantly watered. It's interesting that the Torah would mention a Lashon Yavani. So the Mefarshim say that the truth is that there was one original language, Lashon Kodesh, and all the Shivim Lashonos evolve from Lashon Kodesh. So at times we find that the Torah did make reference to other languages as well within the Torah. Here you have Idur is Lashon Yavani. The Gemara elsewhere says Hein Yiras Hashem Hi Chachma. Hein is Achas b'Lashon Yavani. You have Yigar Sahadusa in Bereshis. It's Aramaic. And the point is to show that all language is really sourced in the Torah. You see that it's the same letters. The same 22 letters are found in pretty much all the alphabets. And there's no deviation as far as sounds, as far as the oisios. It's just different variations and combinations of those 22 letters, 22 alphabets of Lashon HaKodesh. Okay, so in short, we proved that the Priyetz Hadar is a reference to an esrog. We had 4 options. Either because Priyetz Hadar indicates that it has to be something which is Tam Eitz or Yipur Yishaveh, which is the esrog. which followed Hashem's orders and had the eights matching the pre. Hadir can be referring to a pen, whether Agdoilim Uktanim, Hadar Beilana Bishan Lashana, or Idur, the esrog tree, which is Gadol Al Kolmai. Let's go back to the list of psulim mentioned in the Mishnah. It says the Gemara Shel Ashera v'Shel Ir HaNedachas Pasul. An esrog taken from an Ashera tree or from an Ir HaNedachas, it's Pasul in both cases. The esrog is slated for streifa, for destruction, and therefore it's Pasul. My time, says the Gemara. Why? Kiven de la streifa koy, because it's intended for streifa, for destruction. It says, oh, it's missing a shear. An esrog needs to have a certain shear, a certain size. Now, what's the significance of size, of quantity? It adds capacity, it adds functionality. When it's slated for destruction, then it's not meant to be used in this capacity. Size, quantity plays no role, it's meaningless. So it's missing the sheer aspect, and therefore it can't be used. V'shel Arla Pasel, if you take an esrog of Arla, it's Pasel. Why? My time. We have a machlokes. Pligiba, Rabbi Barabin, V'Ravasi. So there's machlokes between these two amirim. We're unsure at this point as to who said what. And the machlokes went like this. Chad Amar, one maintained the reason for Arla's psul is because it's not edible to him. It's asr ba'achila. What does the Torah say? L'kachtem lochem. It needs to be ro'i to you. It needs to be edible. And that's the way you use a fruit. You eat it. If you can't eat it, it's not lochem. It's not truly yours. That's one pshat. The other one explained, you don't have ownership in this esrog, which is asr bahana. You don't have monetary balus here. That's not called lochem. Now, the Gemara is trying to analyze the machlekes. The Gemara figures that these are two separate, distinct approaches. Because Salka died, the Gemara figured, man de boy heter achila, the one that required edibility, that it should be roi for achila, loy boy din mammon, doesn't require ownership. The ikar use of the fruit is la achila, it's the ikar shimush. And that's what's needed to be considered lochem. Ownership, monetary possession, that's not important. That's not a precondition for lochem. Uman de boy din mammon, loy boy heter achila. And likewise, the Amoira, who tells us that lochem is dependent upon din mammon, ownership, monetary possession, he considered that to be primary. And even if you don't really have a heter achila, it's not really edible to you, that's enough, that's okay, as long as you have din mammon. Let's go over to Rashi, 20 lines from the top. It says Rashi, Levishein bo heter achila. What's wrong with that? V'rachman amar lachem. Hasharoi lachem b'chal darchei ne'aseh. You're meant to be able to use it the way it's meant to be used. A fruit is meant to be eaten. If you can't eat it, it's not lachem. That's one shita. The other one explains, V'she'en bo din mammon. She'en yeshav pruta, d'isura nohu. Although it's a nice fruit, but it's asar b'hana, it's considered valueless. Hilkach lav shalachemhu. And therefore it's not considered yours. Continues Rashi. Kasalka died, the Gemara figured at this point, these are two separate avenues, two separate perspectives, as far as defining the word lachem. Man de boy heter achila, the shita, who considered achila as the primary concern. If you have heter achila, then you're taken care of. For instance, could go in masa sheni b'Yerushalayim, a masa sheni in Yerushalayim, which can be eaten. That's considered lachem. Lo yibayid in mammon. We're not concerned of whether or not you have monetary ownership. So even if it's not really your mammon, according to Reb Meir, he holds that Maser Sheni is given to you by Hashem for eating purposes, but it's really still Hashem's money. It's mammon gavoya. It's not really your personal money. You can't use it to be mekalish isha. It's not really your money. Still, it's okay because you have access to it. You can eat it. Kasha latzis boy. That's enough for lachem. That's one opinion. Uman de boy din mammon loy boy heter achila. And conversely, the other shita, who says that it's dependent upon din mammon, heter achila is irrelevant. Umachshir esrog shel tevel. For example, you have esrog shel tevel, which is really yours, but you can't eat it. She'asa b'achila umutar b'hana. The achila determines. That's the one and only criterion. And since it's edible to you, it's mutar b'achila. That's enough. And since it's the esrog shel tevel, which is mutar b'hana, right? So that's why it's yours. Mutar b'hana, you can use it, you can sell. That's enough, even though you can't eat it, even though it's asur b'achila. So bottom line is, at this point in the Gemara, we have two approaches. Lachem either is referring to heter achila or din mammon. And the svara would be the shita that says din mammon, ownership is what determines. Monetary balance. That's the lachem. Eating, okay, I'll give up on the eating. The other shita held, you have to be able to use it the way it's meant to be. What's the primary use of a food item? Not meant to be sold to the next person. It's meant to be eaten. That's the ikar shimush of that achila, of that pri. And therefore, lochem is determined by whether or not you have that achila in the fruit. In fact, we see the svar in Tosfos, because Tosfos asks, he says, if you need heter achila for it to be considered lochem, that takes care of the esrog. Okay, what about the lulav? You can't eat a lulav. So why is it considered lochem? Ukachtim lochem refers to the lulav as well. You can't eat it. There's no heter achila. So Tosfos says, of course, it's all relative. By lulav, nobody needs heter achila. He says the loy shayach be'achila. It's all relative to the designation, to what it's meant to serve, how you meant to use this item. So when it comes to a lulav, of course, lachem, all agree lachem means ownership. But when it comes to a fruit, we have a shaila. Is ownership sufficient? Or do we say, no, the primary purpose of a fruit is to be eaten, and therefore we disregard ownership? That's not a factor. It's the achila, which determines the lachem. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. So now, let's take a look at our Mishnah. Mishnah says, Shal Truma Tmeya, puzzle. You take an esrog, which happens to be truma, which happens to be tummy, which can't be eaten, but it's yours. It's your object. It belongs to you. Mishnah says it's puzzle. Now, this Mishnah works out very well according to the Shita, which tells us that only lack of achila is a concern. Well, in this case as well, you don't have achila. It's asur b'achila, and that's why it's puzzle. It's not lachem. But according to the opinion that ownership is what determines, what's the problem? Amai. Why can't you use truma tmeya? The kohen can take this truma tmeya and use it as fuel underneath his pot. So he has heter ana, he has ownership, he has use other than eating. So why is it possible? Says what you write. All agree. In order for it to be considered lachem, it has to be edible to you. Because let's remember, that's the primary function and use of a pri. If you don't have that, you have nothing. That's the base. Number one, achila is required. The question is whether you have to have ownership on top of it being edible to you. Mar savar heter achila be'inan. One shita maintains that all you need is heter achila. Din mammon lebe'inan. You don't have to have ownership, as long as you have access to that fruit. If it's maser sheni in Yerushalayim, even according to Rabbi Meir, where it's not really your mom, but if you have access to that food, it's enabled for your achila, that's fine. Din mammon lebe'inan. You don't have to have actual ownership. Umar savar, the other shita held, din mammon nami be'inan. On top of heter achila, you have to have ownership. And that explains why truma tmeya is possible according to all shitas. There's no heter achila. It's certainly an alochem. A food that can't be eaten is not really something you have ownership over. You don't have it. You can't use it. Maybe now, is there any difference, any nafka between the two shittas. They both require heter achila, and one says, well, on top of heter achila, you have to have ownership. Can you find a case where you'll have heter achila without ownership, and that will be dependent on the two shittas? Says, well, yeah, very simple. Ikir b'nai, the difference is Maser Sheni b'Shibir Shalayim, as Rashi mentioned. Ali b'der Reb Meir, you have Maser Sheni in your Shalayim, you could eat it. The Torah gives you reshus to eat your Maser Sheni if you're in the right place. But according to Rabbi Meir, it's Mammon Kavai, it's still Hashem's money. So Lamanda Omar L'Visha Ein B'Heter Achila, according to the Shita, that the concern is only when you can't eat it. Hadar Yesh B'Heter Achila, in this case you're okay because you can eat it, and you can use it for your esrog. Lamanda Omar L'Visha Ein B'Din Mammon, according to the Shita, that money is the criterion as well. On top of Heter Achila, you need to have ownership. Maser Sheni Mammon Gavayu. Since Maser Sheni is Hashem's funds, you can't use it to be Mekadesh Isha. It's not your personal possession. It can't be used for esrog. It's not lechem. Let's go back to Rashi, perhaps. About 10-12 lines above our position in the Gemara. It says Rashi, Ela beheter achila dekul amula be'ina. Everybody agrees that you need to have heter achila. Vafilu yesh badin mammon. Even if you have ownership, that's not enough. Lo meskashim b'le heter achila. Why, says Rashi? Because heter achila is primary. The kiva de leichazil chol darki ano lav lachemu. Since it can't be used for what it's meant to be used. What's a fruit meant to be used for? For achila. If you don't have that, you have nothing. So that's basic. The question is, do you need din mammon on top of that? One sheet that says no, din mammon loy be'inan. In materis b'achila, once you can eat it, you're okay. You can go in Maser Sheni b'Yerushalayim. I'll leave it with Reb Meir. Kasha. Because you can eat it. So getting back to the Mishnah, Masnisin Diktani Shal Maser Sheni b'Yerushalayim kasher. In fact, the Mishnah is now very well explained. Mishnah says that Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim is kasher. Afilu k'Reb Meir. This works even according to Reb Meir. The Omar Maser Sheni Mama Gavayu mitukma. Even according to Reb Meir, it works. So what that it's Mama Gavaya? It's edible to you? That's enough. That's one approach. The other shita says, no, din mammon nami be'inan. On top of heter achila, you have to have personal monetary balus on that item for it to be considered truly lochem. It has to be your possession. Therefore, says Rashi, Maser Sheni, the Reb Meir pasal. Even though you can eat the Maser Sheni Yerushalayim, but according to Reb Meir, it's heavenly funds. It's not your personal possession. And therefore it's pasal. Oh, so what does the Mishnah mean? Umas nisan the tani kasher, Mishnah which said the Maser Sheni Yerushalayim is kasher, that's Rabbanon here. Different shita, the Amri Mammon Heditu. They maintain the Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim, as Tosfos points out, in Yerushalayim, it's Mammon Hedit. It's your personal possession. In fact, Umakachin Ba'isa Isha, you can use it to Makadosh and Isha, apparently it's really yours. And only for that reason does the Mishnah say it's kasher. So let's just recap. Pasuk says, "L'kachtam lochem," yours. You have access to it. It has to be edible to you. That's pashut. The question is regarding ownership. One shita says not required. The other shita says yes. The nafkamina, Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim. It's edible, but it's not really yours according to Rabbi Meir. If it needs to be yours as well, then according to Rabbi Meir, you're not yetze. It's not lochem. Continues the Gemara. So we had two shitas, Rabbi Chia bar Abin and Rabbi Asi. The question is whether you need din mammon on top of heter achila. We weren't sure who said what. Says the Gemara, I'll prove it to you. This time you can conclude that Rabbi Asi, the Amar l'vishein ba din mammon. In fact, it was Rabbi Asi who maintained that din mammon is required above and beyond heter achila. How do we know? The Amar Rabbi Asi himself said, Esrog shel Maser Sheni l'divrei Rabbi Meir. You have an Esrog Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim, but according to Rabbi Meir, who said it's Mammon Gavoya, you have heter achila, but it's not really yours. Ein adam yotzei b'yidei chivasa b'yom tov. You can't use it on Yom Tov. That's Rabbi Meir, because you're lacking din mammon. Of course, l'divrei Chachamim, who maintain it's your money, adam yotzei b'yidei chivasa b'yom tov. You can't use it on Yom Tov because you have din mammon. So this was who? Rav Asi. Apparently, it's a riot that Rav Asi maintains on top of din achila, you have to have din mammon. This time, in fact, this is a good conclusion to our question. Continues the Gemara. Let's review this halacha. Gufa. Amar be'asi. Esrik shamas sheni. V'divrei Rab Meir ein adam yotzei b'yidei chavasa b'yamtiv. Right? Because it's not your mammon. L'divrei chachamim adam yotzei b'yidei chavasa b'yamtiv. Now Rabbi Asi provided another two applications for this halacha. So one was regarding esrig. Right? According to Rab Meir, even in Yerushalayim, where you can eat it, since it's not really your mammon, it's mammon gavoya. It's lacking in lochem. Chacham maintain it's mammon headed. It's your personal possession. It's lochem. We have another two cases where lochem is required, and therefore maseh sheni in Yerushalayim would be problematic. Matzah shel maseh sheni. So the first night of Pesach, there's a mitzvah, a chiv to eat matzah. And the Gemara is assuming it has to be yours. So you have matzah of maseh sheni. Matzah shel maseh sheni l'divrei Rab Meir ein adam yotzei b'yidei chavasa b'Pesach. It's not your money. You have access to it, but it's not truly yours. It's not your possession. You don't have ownership, and you can't be yotzei. However, l'divrei chachamim, no concern. Adam yotzei b'yidei chavasa b'Pesach, because it's your money. Third case is isa shel maseh sheni. You have a battery, you have a dough made of maseh sheni material. L'divrei Rab Meir p'tur min hachala. According to Rab Meir, it's pater from chala, because it needs to be yours. This is not really yours. L'divrei chachamim chayevas b'chala. According to Chacham, it is chayiv in chala because it is your money. It says Rashi 4 lines from the bottom. P'tur min hachala. Why? Who says it has to be yours? T'chsiv arisoi seichem. It has to be your batter. Vayda gavoyahi. Maseh sheni, even Yerushalayim, is Hashem's money, according to Shittas Rab Meir. Va'afagav dihit ike heter achila. Now, this is despite the fact you have full access. You can eat this dough, this bread, kiven the lesba, din shar mammon lav dedeyu, since you don't really have monetary ownership. You don't have ba'alus mammon. This is Rav Asi speaking. That's not truly lochem. Says the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom. What's going on here? Maskiv l'Rav Papa. Bishlema Isa, I understand why Isa needs to be yours. Ksiv reishis arisoi seichem. Right? You have to separate the chal, the reishis, arisoi seichem of your dough. Esrog nami, okay, there as well. Ksiv lachem, which tells us mishalachem. To understand why you have to own it. What about matzah? Ela matzah, miksiv matzah schem. Where do you find in the Torah the word matzah schem to indicate that it has to be yours? How do you get to apply this halacha to matzah? Omar Rabba bar Shmuel v'itema. Some say it was Rav Yemer bar Slamya. Asir lechem lechem. We learned it from Exeres Shava. Ksiv hacha lechem oini. By matzah it says lechem oini. Uksiv hasam, and by the mitzvah of chala it says v'haya ba'achalchem lechem haaretz. So we connect the two words lechem, and we say malahala mishalachem, just as by the chi of chala we learned that it has to be yours, v'lo mishal maser, as opposed to maser, which is not yours, according to Rab Meir. Avkan, likewise by matzah, we learn mishalachem v'lo mishal maser. So we have 3 applications. One is chala. Number 2, matzah. Number 3, esrog. It says Molemim Sayele, perhaps we'll have a right to Rav Asi's chiddush. Then in all 3 cases, it needs to be really yours. We can prove it from the following price. Isa shel maseh sheni p'tur min hachala. A maseh sheni dough in Yerushalayim is pater from chala, divrei Rab Meir, because he doesn't have din mammon. V'chacham oimrim chayevas b'chala. So apparently, this halacha is true. Maseh sheni in Yerushalayim, since according to Rab Meir, it's mammon gavaya. You don't really have din mammon. You're pater from chala. It's not a risei seichem. And perhaps we should extend this concept over to matzah, to esrog, just as Rav Asi maintained. Says the Gemara, what do you mean, perhaps this is a raya? This is the very same exact halach as Rav Asi. Of course it's a raya. He spoke about chiv chala, however, brisa, which teaches us the same. What do you mean, maybe it's a raya? Ella, rather, what we meant is that the brisa really only speaks about one component, challah. And we have to stretch it. We have to extend it over to the other ones. The point was that perhaps, since we find that the machlekes applies to chiyav challah, baha nami pligi, it would apply to esrog and matzah as well. Is that true? That since by esrog and matzah, it needs to be yours, then if it's maser sheni, it's not, and it can't be used. Oidilma, perhaps there's room for distinction. Shani isa, the dough, with respect to challah is different than esrog and matzah. Why? We find the Torah mentions the word arisei seichem twice. Yeah, over here it has to be really yours. Not only mutar b'achila, not only edible to you, it needs to really be owned by you. You need to have din mammon. But perhaps when it comes to the other examples, such as matzah, such as esrog, not necessarily. Does it have to be yours to that extent? And perhaps even heter achila would suffice. So it isn't really a clear proof to Rav Asi's Chiddush, who maintained that the din of din mammon on top of heter achila is a requirement in all three cases, by challah, by matzah, and by esrog. It's really inconclusive. We don't really have a raya from this brisa to prove it. However, Rav Asi maintained that it is so. That the true lachem is number one, heter achila, and number two, din mammon. And just as by a challah, it has to be really yours. Likewise by matzah, it has to be really yours. We learn it from Gzera Shava. And same thing by esrog, because he holds that the true lachem, the true yours, is only if it's really yours as far as edibility and as far as ownership. Continues the Gemara, Shal truma tmeya psul. Mishnah tells us that if you use an esrog of truma tmeya, it's pasul. And as we mentioned earlier, the reason is very simple, because the less heter achila, you can't eat it. You don't have access to the to use the esrog the way it's meant to be used, and therefore it's lacking in lachem. And as we said earlier, everybody agrees that heter achila is a precondition for lachem. However, v'shal truma tahira lo yitel. If the esrog is truma, but it's truma tahira, which is really edible, don't use it lechatchila. Why? We have a machlekes. Pligi ba Rabami Rabasi. Chadamar, one explained, because he's going to enable it for tum. How's that? So Rashi brings the Mishnah later that they used to keep their lulav bundle in water to keep it fresh. And then when you take it out and put it together with the esrog, you're going to get the esrog wet. By getting it wet, it's machshir l'kabel tumah. It's going to enable it for tumah. And if it's truma, you're meant to take care to be shemer that truma from becoming tumah. So using it in this manner is inappropriate because it's lacking in the shmir. You're facilitating, you're enabling the tumah to arrive, and therefore not meant to use it. The other one explained, because he's spoiling it, he's ruining it by handling it on SUKKAH. The skin gets spoiled, and once again, that's a problem if it's truma. You're not meant to be mafsid truma. Might be now, is there any difference between these two approaches? Whether the concern is hechsher l'kabel tumah or because of hefsid? So they go, yeah. In the following case, let's say he separated this esrog, he designates it as truma. Chutz mikli pasa. He left out the skin. He says, everything in here is truma except for the outer skin. Chutz mikli pasa chitzayna. So now, lamanda amar pnei shemachshira. If the concern is hechsher l'kabel tumah, ika. That's relevant here as well, because when it gets wet, the truma inside will get tummy as well. It's all one entity. Lamanda amar pnei shafsida. However, according to the shita that the concern was only hefsid leka, it doesn't apply in this case because it doesn't really concern us. If the outer shell, the outer skin gets spoiled, that's not even truma. So in short, truma tahira should not be used. We have two reasons. Hechsher l'kabel tumah, which applies in all cases. Hefsid, which only applies if the outer skin is actually truma. That's the chatchila. Vim natal kshera. If he should use it, he's yaitze. It's certainly kasha. Why? So although it's truma, but it has all the conditions. It meets all the requirements. L'man da amar pnei she'ein bo heter achila. You see, according to the Shita Namar Aleph, who told us that the concern by Erla is because it's not edible to you. In this case, you have no concern. Hariyesh b'heter achila. It's perfectly edible. It's truma tahira. L'man da amar she'ein bo din mammon. According to the other approach, The concern is only when it's not really yours. Right? So on top of heter achila, you have to have ownership. Well, truma tahira is fine. Hariyesh badin mammon, you have ownership. Says Rashi right off to the left. Hariyesh ba heter achila. Explains Rashi like this. So truma has heter achila and din mammon. How's that? Who's shaking this esrog? Is it a Yisrael? Is it a Kohen? Says Rashi has heter achila le Kohen. Kohen could eat it. What about a Yisrael? Listen to this chiddush, says Rashi. The Yisrael nami nafikba. Even a Yisrael can use it. Im lakhem a Kohen. Let's say you purchased the truma from a Kohen. You can do that. So although you personally can't eat it, you can be yaitze. Why? Where's the heter achila? Says Rashi. Hoil v'yochel achila? You can feed it to your grandson who happens to be a Kohen. It's a chiddush in Rashi. Feeding it to somebody is considered heter achila. It's edible to you. You can feed it. You have access to it as food. Interesting concept. So therefore it's considered heter achila even for Yisrael. Aval, of course, says Rashi, of course, pidin ein lo. You can't say that literally he can eat it. If he redeems it, lias niteris lachilas Yisrael v'oimer kein rashu. Fascinating lashon in Rashi, very unusual. Don't even think for a second that the Gemara meant that the Yisrael can actually eat the esrog by redeeming it. There's no such a thing. You can't redeem truma and make it mutar b'achila. So whether it's the Yisrael or the Kohen, we consider it to be mutar b'achila. Regarding mammon, says Rashi, hariyesh badin mammon. He has financial interest here. He has din mammon. How? Kohen mekadosh b'asei isha. So Kohen is simple. He can use it to mekadosh isha. Apparently it's his. The Yisrael nami, even a Yisrael, can theoretically own truma. So although truma belongs in the Kohen's hands, but the Kohen can sell it back to the Yisrael. It must not lack Kohen mekadosh b'asei isha. U'moichel kahanim badam shaloi. Let's say the Kohen gave it to the Yisrael, can use it to mekadosh isha, can sell it back to a Kohen and keep the money. So he has monetary ownership here. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. V'shel demai, if he used demai, which was esrog purchased from Amoritz, where there's a suffix as to his truma masa status, and the Gemara tells us that it's really only a chumrah, because Roy v'Ami Oretz would tend to the trumas and maasros. Some of the Rabbanim are meant to eat it, and the Mishnah tells us b'di'evet demai is perhaps even l'chatchila. Demai is, according to Beis Shammai, pasul. According to Beis Hillel, an esrog of demai is kosher. My time at the Beis Hillel, what's the reason of Beis Hillel that it's kosher? Fact is, you're not meant to eat demai. You're not meant to eat demai. Where's the heter achila? Kivan the boy mafkir l'nechsei, because if he wishes, he can be mafkir's nechasim, give up on his properties, and turn himself into a pauper. What happens then? V'chazile. He's allowed to eat demai, because demai is only a chumrah, and the chachamim allowed an ani out of necessity to eat demai. So since every person theoretically can eat demai, if he turns himself into an ani, that is sufficient for it to be considered edible to you. Right? Since theoretically you can actually eat this. Hashta nami lochem kirinabe. So even now when he's still an usher, technically he can't access this fruit. It's considered chazile, it's considered lochem, and it's mutter. This not as we find in the Mishnah, that an ani is allowed to eat demai. Ma'achila is aniyim demai, we're allowed to feed aniyim demai. V'sachsanya demai, we're allowed to feed the achsanya, these traveling soldiers who are considered aniyim. So you're allowed to support, allowed to feed these soldiers with demai. And that explains the halacha in our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai disagree. They hold that esrog shel demai is pasul. Why? Because it's not lochem. You can't eat it. Because they hold that it's so important to refrain from eating demai that even an ani lo yachal demai, even an ani can't access demai, the sun. It's not, as we find in the Mishnah. There's a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So the Mishnah says machilin is aniyim demai, v'sachsanya demai. So the Mishnah says you can feed an ani demai and the achsanoim, these soldiers as well. You can feed them demai. And Rav Huna explained, V'amar Rav Huna, Tana, we learned in a brayso, this Mishnah reflects only shittas Beis Hillel, because there's really a machlokes. Beis Shammai omrim ein machilin es aniyim v'sachsanoim demai. Beis Shammai maintain you can't feed these people demai. That explains the halacha in our Mishnah. Dmai is inaccessible to anybody, and therefore it's not lachem. However, Beis Hillel hold, Beis Hillel imrim ma'achilin esaniyim dmai v'sachsanoim dmai, and that explains why they hold an esrog of dmai is kosher for mitzvah use, because since an ani can have dmai, and any person can turn himself into an ani, so it's considered that he has access to this fruit, at least in theory. It's called lachem. It's considered something which is edible to him, and it's kosher for mitzvah use. Shel Maser Sheni Shebiyushalayim. So Mishnah says, L'chatchila, you should not use an esrog, which is Maser Sheni, even if you're in Yerushalayim, where you can eat it. L'chatchila, don't use it. Why? The same concern as we had by Truma. L'man da Amar Bnei Machshira. According to the Shita, that the concern was because he's enabling the Truma for Tuma by getting it wet. Hari Machshira, here as well, when it comes to Maser Sheni, you're meant to maintain the Tahara of the Maser Sheni. Rashi says, Maser Sheni bo ishimur de kodesh ikri d'chsiv b'chal masa oretz. We find that the pasuk refers to Maser Sheni as something kodesh. So to this extent, it has the same status as truma. Keep it tohar, don't get it wet. So keep away from using Maser Sheni. L'man da'amar b'nei shem afsida, according to the other shita, the concern is because he's actually ruining and spoiling the truma. Here as well, harim afsida, and therefore don't use it. That's the chatchila. V'im not al kshera, but the evidence works. And the question is why? So this relates back to our discussion that we had regarding the definition of lachem. We had machlokes, and we said that according to all shittas, it needs to be edible to you. It has to have eter achil to be considered lachem. According to Rabbi Asi, you need din mammon as well. So how is it that Maser Sheni b'Yerushalayim is kosher? Explains the Gemara. Well, it depends on the two approaches. L'man da Amar b'nei she'ein bo heter achila. According to the Shita, which said that the concern only applies when you can't eat it. So in order for it to be considered lachem, it has to be edible to you. It has to be mutar b'achila. Divrei HaKol. So our Mishnah follows all Shitas. What Shitas? We had a machlokes between Rabbi Meir, who held that Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim is considered heavenly funds, mammon gavoya. It's not considered your possession. You don't have din mammon. Whereas the Chachamim maintain it's called yours. Either way, says the Gemara, you're okay. If the only requirement is heter achila, even according to Rabbi Meir, it's kosher for sukkah's use because you can eat it. Hashem gave you permission to eat your Maser Sheni Yerushalayim. You have access to it, and therefore it's lachem. L'man da'amar v'she'ein bo din mammon. Now, according to the other shita, which was Rabbi Asi, that the concern by Arla was because you don't have ownership, you don't have din mammon. Achila wasn't enough. You need to actually own it. So why is Maser Sheni Yerushalayim kosher? It can't work according to Rabbi Meir. It's not your mammon. You can eat it, but it's not your money. Apparently, Hamani Rabbanani. It must be Shittas Rabbanan. The Maser Sheni Yerushalayim is mammon hedyot. It's your personal belonging. And therefore, it's considered lachem. Let's go over to Rashi, parallel to our Gemara. L'man Amar, says Rashi, ba'erla, the one who explained by Erla. The concern was if she'ein bo heter achila. Avali hava bo heter achila, but if it was edible to you, hava meskash, it would have been fine. Vafilu less badin mammon, even though you don't own it. Ha yesh bo nami heter achila. Maser Sheni Yerushalayim is edible, and it's fine. Umas nisin the tani kasher, the Vrei The mission which says kasher is following all shittas. Afilu Rab Meir. The Amar Maser Sheni Mama Gavayahu, mitukma, works even according to him. The Baha din Mama Labina, we don't need ownership. The Kivan the Achila, Lachem Karinale. Since it's edible to him, it's considered Lachem. Uman the Amar Ba'arlo Vishaim Badin Mammon, according to Rabbi Asi, that din Mammon is required. Di Nami have a het bachila, have a pasala, mishum the less a mammon, l'shar noise. And even if you can eat it, but if it's not really yours, you can't use it for other purposes. It's lacking in lachem. Kigoy Maser Sheni b'Yerushalayim the Rameir, for instance, Maser Sheni Yerushalayim according to Rameir, you can eat it, but you can't use it for other purposes. It's not your money. Apparently, Masnisin Rabbanon he, the Mishnah which allows Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim is the Rabbanon. The Amri Maser Sheni Mammon Heditu. It's your personal possession. V'loi Rab Meir, but it can't be Rab Meir. The Ilo Rab Meir apostle, because it's not your money. Continues the Gemara. Also Chazazis, if the esrog develops some sort of skin condition, some sort of blistering, If the chazazos covers most of the esrig, it's possible. It's lacking in hadar. Amar of Chizda, Dover said the following halacha. Rabbeinu Hagadol Amri was said by Rabbeinu Hagadol, Rav. Hamakam yiyah be'ezrei. Hashem should always give him siyata d'shmai. What do you say? Lo yishanu el b'makam echad. When we speak about the chazazos covering most of the esrig being problematic, that's only if it's concentrated in one location. Aval b'shnayim u'shleishim makayim is kosher, but if it's dispersed throughout the esrig in 2 and 3 places, it's fine. It's not so noticeable, it's not so visible, it's not lacking hada. If anything, the other way around. If it's all over the place, apostle, it's like a spotted esrig. It's worse off than just in one location. Of course it's possible. How can you say that? Ela itmar. Rather, says the Gemara, if we learned this halacha, it was the following way. Asay for itmar was in reference to the second part of the Mishnah. First, the Mishnah says if the chazazos covers most of the esrog, it's possible. But if it's al mi'utay kosher, if it only covers a minor portion of the esrog, then it's kosher. On this, we have the halacha of Rav Chisda. Amar Rav Chisda. Dover zeh, the following thing was said by Rabbeinu Hagadol. Rabbeinu Hagadol Amri. V'malkim yeh be'ezrei, which is lo yishanu. When is a miut chazazos not a concern? El b'malkim echad. If it's in one location, it's not so noticeable. But if it's all over the esrog, apostle. So he agrees to Rava's argument, of course. If it's dispersed throughout the esrog, if it's in Shnaim or Shleishim Mekaymis, it's even worse. It's like a spotted leopard. Of course it's possible. Amar Rava, I have one more thing to add. One more exception. If it's up on top, on the nose, Rashi says, where the esrog begins to slant, to sort of turn into a point. That's called the chaytim. That's the most noticeable portion of the esrog. Over there, even if it's just a drop of chazazos there, it's so noticeable. It detracts from the beauty of the esrog and its pas. If the pitim was taken away, it's possible. What is the pitim? Tana Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar. Nitla b'chnasei. So buchna is the pestle which is used to crush in the mortar. So the pitim here is the portion protruding out of the top of the esrog, the spire, out of the top of the esrog. So it looks like a pestle because it's straight and then it rounds up on top. That's removed. The esrog is possible. So you had a different gersa. You had a brayse instead of pitmasei, buchmasei. Mishnah speaks about niklaf, a esrog which was peeled. Amar Rava hay esrega da aglit, an esrog which was peeled, and now it appears brownish, reddish, kiahina, like a date sumka, reddish date. That's what happens when you peel fruit. It gets brownish and reddish. Kshera. The esrog is kosher. How can you say that? V'anantanan niklaf possible. Mishnah says it's possible. Like kasha, the answer is, depends how much. Habi kula. Rava was speaking about a fully peeled esrog. That is kosher. Because it's all uniform. It's one color throughout. Habi miktsasa. The Mishnah was where it was partially peeled. Rashi on top says, Bekula is kosher, miktsasa is possible to menumaru. Now it's spotted. And it looks worse than if you would have really peeled the entire esrog. Tais says different gersa. He says, a different pshat. He says, miktsasa is actually kosher. Kula is worse off, and it's possible. Okay, let's summarize the entire Mishnah. So we had a guzzle, which was possible because it's not yours. You have nothing from it. No heter achila, no din mammon. Yavish is possible because it's not hadar. Asher and adachas is possible because it has no shiur. It's laid for destruction. Oh, what about Erla? The psul is because it has no heter achila, which is a precondition according to all shittas. And it has another chisaron as well because there's no din mammon. It's asur ba'ana, which adds to the lack of lachem. Truma tmei is possible because it has no heter achila, and that's a requirement according to all shittas. What about truma tahir? L'chatchila not, because either he's being machshered, enabling it for tuma by getting it wet with a lulav, or because he's being mafsid the fruit. And the Gemara tells us if he actually left the peel out, wasn't part of the truma, there's no concern of hefsid. But the evidence is kosher because it's truly lachem. it's edible to him, or at least to his grandson. And the din mammon condition applies here as well. Regarding Demai, according to Beis Hillel, it's kosher. We say since it's right for an ani, and he himself can become an ani if he chooses to, then that's called something which is roy lachilatim. Masasheni b'Yushalayim, chatchila no good because he's enabling it for tumah, or because he's mafsid it. So it's the same like the truma Torah, but the evidence kosher, either because all we need is heter achila, which this case has. According to Rabbi Asi, that din mammon is required as well. Apparently, this Mishnah is following the shitas Rabbanon, that is considered his personal funds, and therefore is considered lachem. Chazazis on most of the esrog is possible. Of course, when we speak about chazazis, it's an internal condition, it's a skin condition. The Paiskim speak out that if the esrog was pricked by a thorn, so it's this external interference and formed a scab as a result. That's not called chazazis. Chazazis means some sort of bubbles and blisters, some sort of irregularity within the skin itself. So if it's over most of the esrog, it's possible, it's lacking in hadar. But if it's on the miut, it's kosher, provided it's in one place. But if it's dispersed throughout the esrog, it's lacking in hadar. And you have to be careful as well that it shouldn't be found on the chaytim, on the top of the esrog, which detracts from its hadar. Little pitmase, which is the buchnase, the pestle on top of the esrog, makes it possible. Regarding niklaf, conclusion was if it's fully peeled, so even though it reddened or browned, that's okay because it's all uniform, one color. Miktsase, in which case you have many colors throughout this esrog, it's possible, it's called menumar. You have a spotted esrog which is lacking in hadar. Okay, so what did we learn today? We began by exploring the pasuk Pri Hadar. What exactly is that? The Gemara concludes that it's an esrog. We have 4 pshatim, either because Pri Hadar indicates that it has to be a fruit coming from a tree whose eitz and peri have the same taste. Either hadar is to be spelled like hadir, a pen, an animal pen which has many sizes and varieties. The esrog tree has last year's fruit and this year's fruit, large and small. Another pshat was Pri Hadar, which is darbi lani mishana l'shana. The esrog strays on the tree from one year to the next. The final pshat was lashon yavani. Hadar is darshan like idur, meaning an abundance of water. And yavani, idur is mayim. The esrog tree needs to be watered. Gadol called mayim, and that's unique to the esrog tree over other fruit trees. We know that the arba minim have to be lochem, lokachtem lochem. What does lochem mean? It certainly means heter achila. That's the main function of food, of fruit, to be eaten. So it has to be edible to you. Does it have to be yours as far as possession, as far as financial ownership? Machlekes. According to one shita, no. According to Rabbi Asi, yes. Now, according to Rabbi Asi, there are 3 applications to this requirement. So if you have, let's say, Maser Sheni in Yerushalayim, which is royal achila, but you don't have monetary ownership, according to Rabbi Meir, who holds that it's mammon gevoya, that's going to affect the chi of challah, the pot. You can't use it for matzah. You can use it for an esrog. By challah, because it needs to be arisei seichem, it has to be yours. By matzah, we learn through Gzeres Shava from challah, and by esrog because of lachem. And the Gemara concluded with all the details mentioned in the Mishnah and explained the reason for each one. Kotav tu and atzlachara.